Welcome to the podcast, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me, Bronston.
Kelly Drysdale, what do you do nowadays?
Well, let's see. I wear a multitude of hats at Kona Coffee and Tea, being the director of logistics, writing contracts, reviewing contracts, doing marketing, merchandising, HR, and then I also, when I'm not 100% busy with that, I'm doing I coordinate the Christmas with the Chefs event, which will be held on December 7th at the King Kamehameha Beach Hotel this year.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the Christmas with the Chefs kind of is like it's in the, we'll probably have you back on the podcast just to talk about them, do some PR, but what do they, are they primarily supporting other chefs, or, because it's a nonprofit, right?
Well, it's the American Culinary Federation, the Kona Kohala Chefs Association. And the proceeds, once, obviously there's some costs involved in order to put on an event, but there's roughly 22 food vendors, properties, hotels, restaurants, and then about between 7 and 10 beverage people. And they provide everything gratis. And
wow.
So it's really cool. And then the proceeds from that go to Hawaii Community College Palamanui, the culinary program, and also to further the education of existing chefs.
Wow, that's so cool. And it's all people from the Big Island.
Yes.
Primarily?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the past, we've had a couple from the east side, but primarily the Kona Kohala coast.
On.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. So, a lot of people don't know this because this is there's a lot of people from the state that listens to this podcast. But I ran against you in 2018, the election of 2018.
Yes.
Were you scared that I was your opponent?
You know what? I didn't know what to expect. It was my first experience in the whole arena. And so, it was a learning curve for me. Fortunately, I did run because I met you. And you have turned into be one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life.
We're such great friends now.
I know. I love it.
It's amazing how that works.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I when we both ran for office, it was like, oh man, another person I gotta run against, but, and I don't know, like I've been into enough campaigns on both on the national and the state level that you have to do some like bad digging for people. And it's unfortunate that it's like that, but you always have to have that at hand. Out of everybody that I've done digging for in the national level and the state level and down to the county level, you're the one person that didn't have like any smack on.
Ooh, I like that.
I know, right?
I like that a lot.
I was like, I have more smack just because, I don't know. It was just like, oh my goodness.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. If you ever wanted to know, there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it was such a good experience. And
it really was.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to not only meet you, but also Cynthia, God bless her heart and her
if
soul.
anybody doesn't know, Cynthia Nazara, she ran against us. There was it was a no incumbent open seat, in a county council election on the Big Island of Hawaii on the west side. And Cynthia Nazara was the fourth candidate that entered into the race, and she ended up passing away from cancer.
Yeah.
And she was a sweetheart.
She was a love. Boy, what a heart. What a huge, huge heart. And she cared so much about this community, and she did so much work and just really wanted to see really good things happen. And I was sad to hear that she had passed, but, she was so good. And she, when it came down to after the primaries, both you and she endorsed me, which I could not be more thankful and appreciative of. So thank you for that.
Of course. It was elections to me are always fun. And I don't know why, because your emotions go wild. I remember, I don't know how you were feeling during the primary elections, but I was at our primary election. I ended up getting sick.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I got like, I don't know what I had, but my entire body just like collapsed because of all the stress.
Yeah, and
that had-
fatigue and
Yeah.
stress. Yeah.
And it's amazing too, because you don't realize what candidates, how candidates go through all of this
You
stuff.
don't. I mean, I had no clue. I had never been involved in politics before. And, I don't consider myself a political person, but I consider myself a community-minded, focused person. And I care very much about our community, which is why I chose to run. But when I found and heard and saw and learned of the dirt that goes on, it really just churned my stomach.
It's so dirty.
It's nasty.
Yeah.
It's really nasty. And, there's old movies that are on Turner Classic Movies that portray that type of stuff.
Right.
And you'd think, oh, no. But then you really get into the mix of it all and you see it for sure. And it's not a pretty thing.
It's one of those things where you have hope for humanity.
Yes.
And you look at it in the real lens, and you're like, oh my God, this is horrible.
Yeah, it was. I mean, granted, I loved learning the things that I learned, and I love digging into what our government is about and what monies are being spent where, and that was really my main focus. I didn't really care. I mean, I couldn't care because I couldn't do anything about the bad stuff. I just had to focus on what my points were and where I wanted to make changes or see things done differently. Yeah. And, see where our monies are being spent and how they're being spent or wasted, as it were. And unfortunately, so I really enjoyed the experience. I learned a lot. Unfortunately, with a real 40 to 50 an hour day a week job or hours a week job, and then coordinating the Christmas with the chefs and running a campaign and captaining
easy.
tennis teams. I mean, there's only so many hats a person can wear and not just I can see how you would have easily gotten sick from that.
Oh my goodness. I and it wasn't just me. Like, I met like other candidates that had the same thing, and I was like, thank God I'm not in the same boat. But you kind of, it teaches you a lot about how you need to care for yourself.
Truly.
And that should be like the first priority. I remember John McCain had that issue, and he spent 2 weeks out of the 2008 election, just caring for his health. And I thought to myself, like, this is way after the election.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, I didn't realize, like, all these old men that run for office really rely on their staff.
Yeah. Well, you do. You have to have your health too. You have to have the stamina. I mean, some of these people that are campaigning for higher offices are going from city to city to city, flying, driving, however they get from point A to point B, and, going to bed at midnight and getting up at 5 or 6 the next morning and doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is just...
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have, the state of Hawaii has a very interesting thing for congressional candidates. And so Congressional 2 versus Congressional 1, which is downtown Honolulu. Right. Congressional 2, you have the Big Island, you have all of Maui Nui, you have the outskirts of the island of Oahu, and you got Kauai and Niihau.
Yeah.
And so now you have a race where you have to island hop via airplane or helicopter. I'm sure it's airplane.
Maybe Paradise helicopter.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if congressional candidates shouldn't be able to afford helicopter
That's
trips.
That's true.
If they are, there's something wrong. But there is a senator out of Hilo. His name is Kai Kahele, and I've talked about him in other podcasts. And I think he's our number one pick. Or my view, he's the number one pick to take over Tulsi Gabbard, since she said that she's no longer going to be running for her position in Congress, and she's going to concentrate more of the presidential election, which I think is a mistake. But anyway, he's probably going to win this. Do you think there's any other competitors out there?
You know what? I have not heard of anyone else, quite frankly. So I have no voice on that topic. I've only heard of Kai's candidacy.
I think the other thing too that people always forget is that when you are running for a congressional race, you can live anywhere in the state and still run for that position. We saw Kaniala Ing from Maui hop over and run for the congressional one seat in Honolulu. Ed Case is a good example because he represented congressional 2 district, and he lived in downtown Honolulu. And I don't think that's personally right, but it's federal law somewhere in the books.
But for the most part, aren't they in D.C. trying to make things happen for our state?
Well, they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be. But when it comes to campaigning, it becomes harder, right?
Right.
So right now I had my list of people were Ikaika Anderson, but he's out. He supports Kai Kahele. Bernard Carvalho came out last week, Tuesday, and it came out in support of Kai. Kaniala Ing, who was the former representative from Maui, came out in support of Kai. And the only two or three right now is Mufi Hanneman, who I thought he always had an eye for the governor's seat. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's going to move from that because he lost badly to Tulsi Gabbard in 2012.
Right.
I don't know if you remember
right,
that, but
yes.
it was like something about 40,000 votes.
Yeah.
And it was pretty drastic, being that he's such a polished politician and his name is so recognizable. The other one is Beth Fukumoto, who is from Mililani. She was a former representative that was a Republican, swapped over to a Democratic ticket.
Funny how they do that, isn't it?
Yeah. I can understand her reasoning why, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. But it's
Well, it's like Michael Bloomberg. I mean, he was a Democrat, then he was a Republican. Now he's going to be a Democrat.
Well, he was an independent for years, and then he hopped over to the Democratic Party. Now he's running for president as of today.
Oh, officially. Oh, well.
Well, that's according to. You're going to laugh at this one. That's according to Bloomberg News.
Oh, well, hello.
I believe they're the ones that can bring it up because he owns, 75% of Bloomberg News?
Well, he's got a few bucks. So.
Yeah, he does. Out of all the mayors out of New York City, I liked him the most. The other one was a little bit out there, de Blasio. And then Giuliani jumped off the cliff with Trump.
Well, prior to the cliff jumping, he actually was there during 9/11.
Yeah,
and he pulled that city together. He rid a lot of crime from New York City. He cleaned that town up really well. And then when he reacted the way he did in the 9/11 attacks, because I happened to be there then in New York when that happened. And
really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about
And I
this,
saw the actions that he took, and they were incredible and remarkable and outstanding, and I commend him for all of his actions at that time.
Were you in the city when that happened?
Actually, we left New York City the day before, and we were in Mystic, Connecticut when I woke up the next morning and saw the planes flying in, and then we couldn't get back in because they closed all the bridges and tunnels and everything else.
So crazy.
We continued up the East Coast, and
were you there for tennis?
Yes, there for the 2001 U.S. Open.
Wow.
And then when we were able to get back in, it was such a solemn state, because in New York, you know how people are honking their horns and screaming at each other.
Yep.
There wasn't a horn to be heard. Everybody was kind to one another for a period of time. We went down to ground zero, and the militia was there, and that was the first time I'd seen militia on our soil, and it was heartbreaking. It was really, really scary and sad, and it was a time I'll never forget.
Yeah. Oh man, I met somebody. Actually, I think I worked with her for a couple of years. Her image is not getting into my head, or nor is her name, but she ended up. She was a nurse, and she was walking towards the buildings when it happened. And then she kind of looked up, and you know how you have two different types of people, right? You have the reactionary, and you have the ones that I don't know or fight or flight, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So she was a fight. She ran right into, she showed me pictures of her hauling people out of this burning building, and I'm like,
firefighters, policemen, nurses, those types of people that run to danger versus away from it, and to help people. Right. That's admirable.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to
Congressional.
The congressional race. Kai Kahele, it seems like he's going to have a pretty easy in.
Well, he's being supported by everybody who was anybody at any given time.
Right. He has like, what, 4 governors now? That's
at least,
so,
yeah.
Yep. He had Howard Dean, who is the former DNC chairperson, and I think he was a presidential candidate back in 2004. Support him.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that means anything in Hawaii, but
Name dropper.
Name dropper. Yep, definitely name dropper. Howard Dean is endorsing me.
Blast from the past.
Yeah, right. It'd be like, I don't know if you know history. We do on this podcast. We do a lot of we have drunk history as well.
Oh gosh, I've seen it on television.
Oh,
it's not becoming.
It's great. It's so good. I do one about Al Smith. And I don't know if you know Al Smith,
No.
but he was the first presidential candidate of Roman Catholic faith.
Oh.
And the reason why people didn't want to vote for him, well, he was the mayor of New York, but people that didn't want to vote for him was the fear of popery. Now, I'm not talking about the popery of like the little things that you keep in your bathroom.
Right.
I'm talking about popery as in the fear of you being a part of the Catholic Church.
Well,
and,
why Henry
and having,
VIII broke off.
Yeah,
right.
like the Pope can makes the decisions for you. Mm-hmm. And so that was a legit thing. And you know who broke it?
No.
John F. Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, when he was elected president.
When he was elected president.
Yeah.
Well, they were a little worried because what's his name? His father was also controlling of Wall Street as well. Because in 1929, he pulled all of his assets out of the stock market
Before
when
it
it
crashed. Yeah.
Which,
well, there's a few more stories about Joseph.
yeah, Joseph.
Yeah.
He was also the ambassador of England. If you didn't know that, it was completely political. The whole he was supposed to run for president. He was supposed to do, and then FDR screwed him over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, there's a little bit more in the backstory of all that too.
Oh
That's
yeah,
not very becoming.
Bootlegging
Yes.
and in the prostitution realm, the roles that they played then, and yeah. Anyways,
Back
congressional
to Kai.
too. But do you think that there's going to be a candidate that can run against Kai?
If there is, I'm not sure who that person is.
Yeah,
I just
thought Josh Green, like the current lieutenant governor.
I think Josh is really trying to fill the shoes that he's already wearing. I mean, he's made so many promises on the homelessness issues and some other topics that really need addressing, that I hope that he'll be able to come through on all of those types of things.
I see he's been spearheading a lot of things, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I think he's going to be contending for the governorship.
The governorship, yeah.
Well, and I think he already submitted his application via the Campaign Spending Commission to become for governorship. That's secret. That's one way to figure out what that candidate's running for. Is through the Campaign Spending Commission.
Oh, just keep a tab on that.
Yeah, if you keep watching it and you select random names, they'll show you what their update is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a nice secret.
I'll have to find some time to do that.
Yeah. Like Mufi and Neil Abercrombie hasn't let go of, they haven't submitted a withdrawal from their spending.
So their chests are still
Their
viable.
chest is still filled.
Okay.
Yes, very much. That's why you always look at it. You're just like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna take a shot at it.
Interesting.
Anytime soon,
Yeah, I shut my chest down. I didn't have an intent to go through that again.
I didn't put my chest down because I was like, yeah, maybe I'll run. I'll stay in the news cycle or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I figured I'd just leave that open just in case. Any way we can best represent the people.
True. I mean, that's not to say that I would never open another.
I mean, it's not that hard to open
another thing again, but at this time I'm closed.
Yeah. And when you look at the congressional 2 races, you have I think you have potentially three candidates right now. One for sure Democratic candidate Kai,
Right.
senator from Hilo, and then you have a Republican that is a possible. She's a maybe. Is Marissa Kearns is her
Okay.
name. She ran for lieutenant governor. She won the Republican lieutenant governor ticket, but lost in the general election. And if I remember correctly, like her and her governor Republican wasn't able to get along too well.
You know what? And I really liked her too. I'm not saying
Are you talking
Marissa.
about Andrea
Andrea
Topola? Yeah.
Topola. Yeah, she had some really, really strong points that I thought needed to be addressed.
I thought she was a very odd candidate, and here's why. She was a Republican,
Right.
so
Strike one.
in
this state.
In this state, yeah. She was a Republican, running in a Democratic state. She was also like very like she had the opposite view of everybody, obviously, because you're in a Democratic stronghold. But being that Republicans are like business minded and
Right.
always come up with like, yeah, we need to support our business, less regulations. She was opposed to the 30-meter telescope.
I think that goes back to her roots of
Cultural roots?
yes,
Yeah.
cultural roots, and I think that's where a lot of the conflicts are right now.
Yeah.
The cultural roots versus the business advancements, and
But that's like that everywhere in the world. It's not just in Hawaii.
well, there's more spiritualism here and more Hawaiiana that, there's a lot of things that haven't been addressed from years past. Disenfranchisement, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And, the Hawaiian homelands, how many people have died being on that list waiting for land or homes?
And then you can kind of see why. I'm a native Hawaiian myself, and you see why. Like, I would be pissed off if my people were waiting on the list for over 100 years. Actually, it makes 1920, I believe, the Hawaiian
20 or
Commission,
29, something
Hawaiian
like that,
Homes
yeah.
Commission Act. Yeah, 1920. So next year makes 100 years,
Right.
and you still don't have Hawaiians on Hawaiian homes.
Right. I know that to me is ludicrous. I just don't get that. What all those monies go for, and I'm sure there's a good explanation between DHHL and OHA and why those monies aren't being applied to people who have been waiting on that list for land or homes is just beyond
Right.
me.
And
I
it's
just
just-
don't
it's-
get it.
And now it's become generational. Like,
Yes.
and you have what, four? You probably have about 4 or 5 generations since then.
Easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I kind of look at it this way. So my great 4 generations back, my great grandfather was the first mayor of Honolulu.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he was, I think he was about 1913, 1912 was when he got elected. And that's 5 generations. So for sure, we're already hitting the 6th or 7th generation
Yeah.
now.
Right.
And so you have all of these Hawaiians that's still on the list, still waiting for land, still waiting for homes. At least in my perspective, what they could do is help have an assistance program where you kind of work with the Native Hawaiians on budgeting, on credit, on the things that you kind of most people don't really know until you're out of school.
That's what Bo Kahui had proposed for La'aiupua,
Right.
is to put that type of center there to teach people economics and
Yeah.
the basic day-to-day living and budgeting and everything like that. I mean, I went to a homelessness task force the other day with Hope Services, and they were demonstrating that ideally 1/3 of your income should be, if you're a renter, should go towards your rent. And they were saying that with today's minimum wage at $10.10, people would have to be making $25.88 an hour in order to be able to, where the standard or average rentals are today, be able to afford to put a third towards the rent. And those wages aren't happening for the average person. So people are working. I went to Ross the other day. There's a woman who was the clerk, the cashier, and we chatted a bit, and this was her second job. She's 7 months pregnant, and she works at, I don't know what the name of it is now, the former Daylight Mine. Uncle Bob's. Papa Bob.
Papa's Coffee, I think it was called.
Something, yeah, whatever. I don't know what it's called. But anyway, that's her second job. So in order for her just to sustain, she has to, at 7 months pregnant, has to work 2 jobs. And that to me is just beyond crazy.
So I have a crazy question for you.
Yes.
I try to keep things fairly impartial.
Okay.
Especially in everything that I do, because I want to be able to ask questions on everything. I don't care what party you're on. I don't care what your religious backing is or everything. You have to remain impartial through everything. Now,
having said that,
do you think that in order for us to help her in the event where, she's 7 months pregnant, she's working 2 jobs, is it because inflation? Is it because the housing market is ridiculous, and so their main concentration is paying for a place to stay? Is it some other avenue where taxes or some form of regulation that hinders people from exceeding in our communities in the state of Hawaii?
I would have to say practically all of the above, because A, there's not enough rental units. B, the rental units that are available are beyond most of the means for people that are of working class, unless you're able to, hooey up and put in, 5, 6, 7 family members, which most of the time are not acceptable to the landlords. It's a double-edged sword as far as minimum wage goes, because yes, the people need to be earning more. How they earn more is through the business. Can the business sustain and afford to pay them more without going under? So it's a double-edged sword. There has to be some sort of, compromise somewhere. There has to be in our particular neighborhood or community, we don't have enough affordable housing. We don't have enough rental units that the average layman working class person can afford to live, either by themselves or with how many family members they have. They don't exist. So we really need to focus on building more affordable housing, getting the names of the people on the Hawaiian homelands list, get them in homes, because all of it, it's everybody. It's not just Hawaiian people. It's not just, local people. It's nobody, unless you're earning $25 an hour, can truly afford to live in the rentals that we have, and there's so very few of them. Mm-hmm. What I didn't know is Hope Services has actually taken on a liability that, whereas if they can find homes or housing for houselessness people, that they will take the liability. In other words, a lot of times, say landlords may not want to rent to X person for whatever reason. Well, Hope Services will step in. They'll assume the liability in case there's a broken window or a fist through the door or something, some accidental mishap. And they will come through and pay for, so to speak, the damages or the restitution to make it right.
Their insurance must be up the roof.
Well, you saw that Jeffrey Bezos just gave them $2.75 million.
Yeah.
That was incredible. That was a...
Was it
275 or
him
225?
Or his wife that did it?
Well, is it Bezos One, Bezos Family One, something like that.
Yeah.
And they granted like $98 million in grants nationwide. And
Yeah.
from what I read, unfortunately, I think it's a one-time grant.
Well, it's better now than
Yeah,
nowhere.
it's
Just
better than a sharp stick in the eye.
Yeah, no. Hopefully, they can allocate it to useful programs versus,
Right.
you know. What about, like, we're kind of getting into the issue of homelessness, but what is your opinion on, like, the homelessness in Hawaii in general? Like, I guess my main question that I want to ask is, do you think that the New York Post reporting is accurate?
Well, again, according to the meeting that I went to, one family was sent here with funds to be able to afford them housing for a year's time. And I don't know if, others are being sent here on one-way tickets. I can't prove that, albeit one of the community police officers who goes around and talks and speaks to the people that are hanging and stuff, they have told him that they were sent here on a one-way ticket from Oregon or from Washington, or no, he didn't say specifically New York, but I mean, who's to say it isn't New York? I mean, I don't know that for fact, but that's what was said to me. So
I always wonder too, because, like, Seattle has a wicked problem with homeless right now. So I can see them, like, passing their issue around to other people. They're San Francisco. I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco.
Oh yeah,
lately.
yeah.
There's people that throw poop at you.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing that I'm hearing from, the parents that are taking their kids down to Old A's for ball games, that there's
homeless men that's masturbating right on the side of the road.
Or there's fecal matter in the dugouts or something like that. I mean, why we can't put out porta potties or something like that, just so these people who don't have a roof over their head, at least they can dignify themselves with some place to do their business, as it were. And
do you think it's like a mental issue?
There's a lot of issues out there. There's substance abuse. There's people who should be taking medication that aren't. There's people who just do not physically have the monies to be able to put a roof over their heads.
Right.
So there's a multitude of issues that go along with the homelessness or houselessness, or however you want to term it. And Hope Services and a lot of the other charitable organizations in town are really doing their darndest. I mean, they have 10 people that are spread island-wide that have to address all of these issues with all of the different people that are out there. Mm-hmm. And I saw that Ross Wilson from Public Affairs, who was also on the Kailua
Village Improvement District or something like that.
Yeah. He had spoke of possibly maybe utilizing some of the space that has been now vacated at the former judicial building for people for treatment, as a treatment center, to get them clean and sober and, make them viable candidates for community positions, jobs, whatever. Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that are out there that, nobody really understands that there's community people out there that are trying to squelch this phenom that we're facing.
Let me ask you this follow-up question, because I think I got this one a lot, is and this is completely based off of philosophy. Right?
Okay.
Because you always have, like, multiple lenses, and you have to be able to adjust lenses based off of the people's beliefs, which I always thought was fascinating, in my opinion, because I went to school for philosophy for a little bit, so I kind of like, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
But what do you tell the people that they come in, they say things like, if you help them, then you bring more in?
Are we talking quid pro quo?
No, not necessarily. That's so funny. No, like we'll have we changed over our entire programs. We've added more money into them. There's incentives for people. There's vouchers and food vouchers for people. And this is all open for anybody that is homeless. So what do you say to the people who say, if you make it good enough for them, that more will come?
Well, that's something that we've asked that question in all actuality. How does one get off an airplane and automatically qualify for government services?
Right.
I don't have that answer. I wish I did, because I've asked several people, and it's like, I don't know. So I don't know what the waiting period is. I don't know how much they're entitled to once they get off that plane. I don't know if there's, they have to have a residence in order to qualify
Right.
for it. I don't have those answers, unfortunately. I'm sure there's somebody out there that does, but I haven't been able to find that person yet.
Interesting. The other thing I was just thinking of that popped into my head is what they qualify, the state of Hawaii, what they qualify for EBT. And I think it's something like less than 60,000 or something like that.
No, I think it's.
Was it less than that?
I think it's 24.
24,000?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in that zone.
Or maybe I was thinking about the cost to live on Oahu to make it, or something like that.
Oh yeah.
It was like something about 60,000 a year.
Yeah.
Which is like ridiculous.
I know. Well, they say here is practically 58.
Yeah, that's about right.
So,
That's about right. If especially, like, it's obviously it's more if you have a spouse or you have kids.
Right.
And I just can't even imagine that. Like, holy smokes, how do people live here?
Well, that's it. They have to hooey up, or they have to get some services from the government. They have to be subsidized.
I've had friends that moved out of state, and they're doing much better, like out of the state of Hawaii. Kanoa and I are the ones that stayed. Oh, I'm sure there's many more, but we love it here, and this is home, and
Right.
It's just sometimes you have to look at it and be like, there's other people that's struggling too.
Right. Well,
And-
as the saying goes, there's a price to live in paradise.
Oh yeah, it is a huge price.
Yeah.
And I always link it. I don't know if have you ever read War and Power? No, Land and Power.
No.
It is a fast. I'll loan it to you one of these days. But it's a pretty fat book. But I think his name is Gavin Dawes. He's a PhD. He wrote The Shoal of Time.
Okay.
But it talks about like the big five that used to be in Hawaii.
Right.
Well, they're still kind of in Hawaii, but the big five that controlled Hawaii and how they were Republican.
Mm-hmm.
And during the overthrow, they were the missionary party.
Right.
And then they became the Republican Party because the United States took over. And that's the reason why the Democrats, more people ended up in the Democratic Party, was because they were anti-corporation.
Right.
But if you think about it, I'm not too sure if you know about this one, but in the early 1920s, Prince Kuhil ran as a Republican.
I did know that.
Yeah, and the reason why he did it was because where was the money?
Right.
In the Republican Party.
Follow the money.
But you know what? He did a lot of good for.
No,
for
he
the
did.
community.
Yeah. I mean, just because the word Republican isn't necessarily a bad word.
It is during the Thanksgiving in my family house.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think partially at least.
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate that there's such a diverse and the dynamics that have just split the nation right now. And if you're a Republican, then the Democrats are bad. And if you're a Democrat, then Republicans are bad. And it's like, you know what? It's like if you're Jewish or Christian or Catholic or, atheist, I mean, does that automatically make you a bad person too? I mean, it's just the divisiveness has become too much, just too much.
I always say, who gives a flapjack?
Yeah. You always say that?
Well, I'm trying to keep this G-rated. Or in this case, non-explicit. So, Yes, in this case, I don't give a flapjack. I have a good story. My because you kind of brought up like you know, cultural differences and whether that be, you know, sexual differences like gay pride and whatnot. My grandmother, when we were in Washington D.C., she bought this umbrella, and it was just when the Supreme Court acknowledged the gay pride. And so we're walking downtown, down in the city of right in front of the Supreme Court at in D.C. And she's over there with her umbrella, and everybody's commenting her on this umbrella.
Did she buy it there just because she
She
thought it was going to rain, or
Yeah,
did she bring it with her?
it was raining and snowing at the same
So
time.
she bought it there.
She brought it there.
Okay,
Yeah.
she didn't realize what she bought when
She
she bought
didn't
it.
realize what she bought.
Got it.
So she was like, "Wow, everybody's commenting on my umbrella," and then I was like, "Yeah, because it's a gay pride umbrella."
Rainbow.
It was a rainbow color, and she was like, "I was thinking of Hawaii." I was like, "Oh, I can see that." Yeah, but it was an interesting experience.
That's great. I love it.
And yeah, like you don't realize how people are so well connected over there. Like when you have that Supreme Court decision, there was people coming from New York and Connecticut and Rhode Island, and there were in Virginia, and you had a lot of people that were protesting from Alabama and Louisiana, and you had a lot of religious groups from all over the country, and they kind of like, most didn't fly in there. They came on the trains, which I thought was, they go right into Union Station.
So they were on both sides of the fence then.
Oh, there was a ton of people there, both sides of the fence.
Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that says that you're going to hell, and there was some people that say that you know, love is love, and it was a fascinating experience just to be there, and also being in D.C. witnessing a huge Supreme Court decision.
You know, live and let live. That's
Yeah.
the bottom line. Who cares what you are or how you believe or
I'm actually-
anything like that? I mean, it's crazy that you could actually dislike somebody for their faith or their whatever.
I'll tell you a good one. There was a state senator. No, I think it was a state senator out of Texas, and he comes up and he speaks and he's like, and I believe that it should be a Class A felony for anal sex. And in my head, I'm just thinking to myself, like, is this guy gonna be like peeking in every single room?
Peeping Tom.
And then so like I there was a Democratic a Democrat who asked questions, and in my head I'm just like, this is gonna end very badly. And so she's like, so my husband, if he accidentally slips into my anus,
Oh my gosh.
this is on the floor of the state Senate, will I be charged with a Class A felony? And he says, yes, you'll be charged with a Class A felony.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, holy smokes, like how in the heck are you going to even manage that?
Well, you know, there's still some states that only the missionary position is acceptable. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, there's if we could go back through all of our laws and see which ones are truly non-relevant and just take them off the books.
That's so funny.
I mean, granted, it would take a while to get through them all, but still, there's a lot of stuff out there that's on the books that really just is so, it's not even the 21st century.
I do know, like, in England, you're not supposed to be kissing under Big Ben.
Oh.
That's a rule from the Queen. I also know, well, I've been into British Parliament or British politics for a minute, and I just find that whole thing fascinating. But like one of them is like, you can't touch a what do you call it, a swan. You're not allowed to touch a swan because those are property of the Queen.
Really?
Same thing with the dolphins.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating.
It is. It's a little crazy, but it's
Yeah,
interesting.
even in Parliament when they yell at each other, the reason why they're yelling at each other is because the rule inside Parliament is that they can't clap. So they yell at each other.
Okay, I have nothing to say to that.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. Imagine like 613 members of parliament, of a legislative branch, just yelling at each other all day.
Can't they like pound their fists on the desk as an applaud,
Nope.
or no form of applause?
No form of applause. So that's why when they yell, they say like, here, or.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
Or they yell out no. Yeah. So it's fairly fascinating. Switching gears though,
Reeling back to Hawaii.
reeling back to localized elections. What do you think about this mayor's race? Where do you think that's going?
You know what? I'm interested. I really only heard two names thus far. Tante and Mitch. And those, there could be more. Oh
yeah, we had Tante on last week.
did you?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a fascinating guy.
He's fascinating, definitely. I think we both ran an election before, but can you imagine running as a mayor? And this island's so freaking large. Like, you're gonna have to.
Yeah.
You can't be in 5 places.
You
at
can't
once.
knock on all the doors.
No, you can't. You
No.
can't. So after the podcast, actually, I think before the podcast too, is one of the things that I've always said is you need to have a base, and you need to have like strong people in different districts, that's working to help you.
Right.
Because there's no way that you're going to be at an event in Kona, but you got to be at an event in Hilo.
Right.
And I always wondered how people were able to manage that, like our current mayor Harry Kim, or who ran against him, Wally Lau.
Yeah.
Or even some of the other ones like Billy Kanoy and Angel Pelago. Like
Billy
way.
was in a lot of places, man.
Well, he knew how to get around.
Hey, Billy was incredible in so many ways. I mean, granted, I'm partial
the
to
way
the
he
fact
was.
that he got a lot of parks built. So that's one thing I'm partial to. But I would see
Well, you're
him.
the reason why Parks and Rec's budget went skyrocket.
Nah.
I'm just kidding.
No, but I mean, I would be down south in Ka'u, and he would be. They would ask him to be like the auctioneer for something that was going on,
Yeah.
and Billy's pidgin is perfect. And then you flip him over, and he's the lawyer, and he speaks perfect gentleman's English.
Isn't
so,
that crazy?
I mean, it's just fascinating to me to listen to him and to watch him change gears in midstream.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll
Yeah.
be sitting there speaking just, like I said, gentleman's English, and then all of a sudden he'll flip the pidgin. And it was...
It's perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
He was great. I mean, he could appease everybody all at once.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever get a Billy Kanoy back into a seat in whether that's council or in a mayor's position?
Well, what I would hope is that whoever is elected is fair to both sides, instead of seeing, because as you and I were speaking earlier,
No, you mean by both sides, because the mayor's race is
Yeah.
supposed to be impartial.
right,
And
but
so you mean by like East and West, right?
East and West, and not to say that I want to divvy it into two separate counties, because I think that's not the right answer. But when Billy was mayor, he had 50% of his appointments from the west side and 50% of his appointments from the east side, and I thought that was a very very fair way to handle things. Unfortunately, we don't have the same representation presently. So
Is that because? Do you think that's because like the current mayor, Harry Kim, when he looks at people based off of what they can provide, and they couldn't find anybody from the west side?
you know what? I can't answer that because I don't know what goes through Mayor Kim's head. So I don't know the answer to that.
Do you think, since we're on the topic of mayoral races, we know for sure Tante is running. Mitch hasn't announced yet, nor we don't know that he is running.
It didn't come off Bloomberg?
I'm sure Hawaiian News Now or I don't know. Is there a Roth Media?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'm just kidding. I haven't heard anything yet.
It's rumored.
It's rumored, 100% rumored. But if he did run, he would be the only candidate that has run in the island-wide election.
That has or has not?
Has.
Okay.
Because he being the prosecuting
Right.
attorney and whatever. But here's something interesting to think about. I think so. There's Tante, for sure. Tante and Wendell.
Oh, Wendell,
who
yes. Right.
Yeah, and Wendell is. I think he's an experienced electioneer
He is.
because I think he ran for like 25 times.
Exactly.
Or something.
Between 25,
Yeah.
25, 26 times.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine running
No.
25, 26 times? I have a hard time running for the last 2 elections
Exactly.
that I ran on. Oh my god.
I did it once.
Yeah, I was never the same. But yeah, 25 times, and he ran for governor and everything else in between.
Right.
And but needless to say, he is running for the mayor's position. Do you think Harry Kim's going to run?
You know what? Based on Harry's health, I would hope that his wife would say, stay home. And it doesn't have anything to do with anything that he said or done, with the exception of possibly not appointing West Side people. But having said that, I think for his health reasons, I think he would be a much happier person not having to deal in some of the things that he's had to face in this, especially this year, specifically this year. Well, and last year. I mean, he had lava. He had hurricane. He had Mauna Kea. You know, he's been plagued with an abundant amount of headache in his term. So I think he's filled his quota, and I hope that he will just relax and take it easy.
I think you're going to see him run again.
Do you?
I do. I think now is the opportunity for this is politically speaking now. Now is the opportunity for him to run again, to see if his message of the TMT issue goes through, to not only gain support from the governor again, because he's gotten he's taken on the TMT role versus the governor taking the backlash for this.
Right.
I think you'll see more of a defining like the definition of what does it mean to be a politician for a Harry Kim. What is a Harry Kim politician? You know, he always says that he wants to represent the best interests of the people, and I think you'll start seeing that a lot more. Like you saw in 2016 when he ran for the mayor's seat. I think you're going to see even more.
Well, what I would like to see is a non-politician.
Like a Bernard Akana.
I mean,
granted, that's before my time.
No, you know what? I actually met Bernard, and he was a trip. He was a good guy, but
he was able to take on a giant in that race.
Yeah.
And that is forever in Hawaiian history.
But see, that's the type of thing I think people are looking for now. They're not looking for the career politician. They're looking for a representative who's going to speak, be the people's voice. And
do you see anybody in the community that can that do that? I know that you see a lot of business members probably going to take a jive into the mayor's race, like Tante.
Right.
I heard that Nicole Pabre from Umekes, the owner of the poke restaurant.
Oh, right. Yeah, I did hear that rumor too.
He might go and for that run. Even a Wally Lau, but I don't think Wally is going to run again.
Yeah. You know what? It's hard to speculate. I mean, until they actually put their name on the dotted line and say I'm in, it's hard to try to pull people's names out of a hat and say, yeah, this person would be great.
But it's so much fun. What about council members? Do you think anybody from council is gonna take on the seat for mayor?
The only person I could possibly see, and again, it's sheer speculation, haven't heard word boo, is Aaron.
Aaron? Yeah.
That's the only person that would.
And he's been in council for he was in the 90s, and he took a break and
Right.
went back in.
Right.
I think that's a good one. I also thought Jay Yoshimoto.
Oh, Jay, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's in corp council.
I think
but
so.
yeah. I think him. I think Sue Leloy might have a chance.
Sue Leloy, I mean, she's working on the permitting process right now, and she's making some great strides.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, she knows a lot about a lot. And I think that she would be a fine candidate. I'm not, again, I have no idea if she's even considering it.
Right,
But
no.
I think
I appreciate always have appreciated her when she talks, because she has a lot of empathy, and when she talks to you, she has this like mother feeling to it. I don't know if you ever.
I've been on conference calls with her at the Conecohala Chamber of Commerce permitting task force that I'm on as well. And she, not only does she know her stuff, she speaks very well. She's very eloquent in her speaking capabilities. And I've seen her out on the golf course at the Four Seasons when we were doing the Conecohala Chamber of Commerce golf tournament out there, and she's very friendly and very kind and nice. So I don't know her personally, but that's what I do know of her, and I think she would be a fine candidate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think so too. I actually put her on a higher list than Erin, though.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I would put her in the. So there's always there's a possibles, and
Right.
then there's a maybe possible.
Right.
And I think she's in the possible.
Oh, okay.
If not now, then she definitely, another 4 years,
Is she termed out 2020 or 2022?
I think she's termed out in actually 24.
Oh, 24, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot from her.
Okay, so speaking of terms, on the next ballot, which is going to be all mail-in, there's the possibility for the people to have council people serve 4 years versus 2 years. What are your thoughts on that?
This debate has gone on for as long. Let's say I'm not that old, so and I remember voting on this about 6 years ago or something like that, or it was a question that came on the ballot, or was supposed to come onto the ballot, but I don't know. I think that you should probably extend it to about 10, because you're only allowed 8 years, right? 4 year
Four
terms.
2-year terms, correct.
Maybe you should extend it to 5, and I don't think it should be 4 years. I understand, it would be good for concentrating on your job at hand, but the reason why it's 2 years is because you're best representing the people.
Right.
And if you're not best representing the people within that 2 years, we can vote you the heck out.
Yep.
And that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about it a little bit. I mean, granted, I concur with what you've just stated, but having heard that freshman council people coming in, it takes them practically 2 years of learning
about
curve.
4 years to
really catch on.
Readjust.
What takes that long? I don't know. Either we're not dealing with very intelligent people, or there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Well, I think a lot of people that we have elected into council don't really know council. They don't really know county issues.
Right.
They only say the things that sound good.
Right.
And that's good. That's good, because you can see how you can positively change it or readjust your alignment of how you're gonna make that policy best for the best interest of the people. I don't think, however, it's I don't know. It's just I know that council members only know certain things. It's hard for them to adjust, because you might not be a policy maker. You don't know the legal languages or the internal languages of the county, or what ordinance is what's the difference between a bill and a resolution, or
Right.
So I mean, you'll always have that.
Yeah, there's a learning curve for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
I mean,
and then even down to parliamentary procedures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and knowing what is the book called? Do you know? It's a big book.
The rules.
The rules. Robert's Rules of
Robert's
Order.
Rules.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I was in the Game Management Advisory Commission, they didn't have any
Make
rules.
sure when you say that there's an M in there.
Robert's
No.
Rules of Order.
Game management. Every time you say that, I always think you're saying something else.
That's why sometimes I actually say game and wildlife management.
There you go.
That way people are like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Yeah, just to let you know, we do not regulate gays in Hawaii County. Absolutely not.
There's no management
There's
issues
no
there.
management issues. Please come. But anyway, yeah, like parliamentary status, you basically how to put a motion on the floor.
Right.
And you have to have a sufficient second. Like that concept was not even in this commission. And I was just utterly shocked to see that it should be in every single form of meeting that is regulated by a government official.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a thick book. There's a lot of stuff to learn in there.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, when I was at a different position or on a couple of different boards, initially when somebody said Robert's Rules, this board of directors meeting comes under the rules of Robert's Rules, blah blah blah. And someone who didn't know anything about it said, "Who the heck is Robert?" And I was like, "Okay, they didn't read the book."
No, not at all. I'll tell you a secret on Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes.
Especially when you're the chairperson.
Yeah.
And this is so dirty, but there's a little bit of a loophole. All right. So when you bring the motion on the floor and it's been sufficiently seconded, because the chairperson is not usually the person that brings the motion to the floor.
Right.
It's usually another member, and then the other member is seconding it. And so you state the motion second, and then you have to bring it up to discussion.
Right.
After the discussion, then they can call for the vote. Now, if they call for a voice vote versus a separation vote, or what they call a split vote, or division vote, which is they would have to go individually.
Like all in favor, all opposed.
So that's
in lieu of.
Yeah.
Right.
So if they do all in favor, any opposed, what the chairperson can do is, if he's opposed or against it, let's say he's opposed to the measure, and he says all in favor, say aye, and the ayes like sufficiently have it, and any opposed, and there's like two people, he can knock on it and say the noes have it.
What?
Yeah. That's why in Congress they changed it. So they changed part of the rules so that doesn't happen. So after that, you can say, I call a division, so that each member votes.
Yeah. And that those votes are counted individually.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know.
No, well, because whenever, when you say all in favor and you hear all these ayes and then, any opposed and you hear no's, you don't really know how many voices are saying which way.
Yep.
It's just which one's louder is the way it sounds.
Is the way, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in Congress too, and you have you're supposed to have an even number of, always have the majority, for example, the Democratic Party is currently controlling Congress. And so if you watch some of the committees, you'll have more Democrats than you do Republicans,
right,
for a specific reason, so that they can have a majority, and when they do the voice vote, it's going to be based off of theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were talking about something a little bit ago.
We're talking about mayor's race.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we know for sure Harry Kim. No, sorry. We know for sure Tante. Wendell is those two are for sure. Mitch Roth is a possible.
Right.
Actually, let's fact check that. Let's look on his campaign spending commission.
Oh, there you go.
Because if he's taking money, he would have to look it right up. And then who was the other name that we were?
Well, you were talking about Aaron or Susan,
Oh,
but
yeah.
neither of them have committed to anything yet.
Yeah, I don't think so. I actually don't think that Sue will run right away. I do know it would be within the next 4 years. Here's another question for you. Do you think that Kona will have a mayor? Like not Kona, like split island, but like there will be a Kona mayor.
You know what was really funny is there was a editorial written, and when they wrote it, I read it as I didn't read what year it was, and I read it to be factual. And they were talking about the mayor of Mauna Kea
Oh, I
and
saw
Mayor
that.
Kim, and I was so upset by that. And I brought it up to somebody, and they said, "Kelly, you dummy, it was a fictitious story." And I'm like, "Oh no, gosh, thank you so much," because I thought it was real, and it was like, no. I think that the island, as I think as Billy said, it's one canoe,
Right.
and we all have to paddle, and the division shouldn't be. I mean, granted, we see sometimes there's inequities between one side or the other. One side pays for the other. One side has more employees than the other. One side this, one side that, blah, 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 blah. And those arguments have been going on since the beginning of time. But,
Right.
I think that really it's one island. It shouldn't be split. Everybody needs to live harmoniously and figure out how to make it all happen together.
Right. No, yeah, I agree with that. I don't think, unfortunately, I don't see a Kona mayor anytime soon. I think it will be in my lifetime.
You think it'll be well, it won't be in mine. That's not saying much, though.
So I just looked up Mitch Roth's organizational report, and it doesn't have. It just says that for prosecuting attorney, which is the current position he has,
Right.
but don't have anything in here. He does have little over $3,000 worth of money on hand, a surplus, but nothing too big.
Yeah, compared to some of the other war chests that are out there.
Oh yeah, like have you seen Lorraine Noise?
Oh man, some of them are like in the millions and hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands, and it's like, it's just
Is
crazy.
that a bad thing?
I think when packs start getting involved versus individuals, I think that can be a little disconcerting.
Yeah.
I think, when you start getting corporations paying for politicians, I think that takes the care and the welfare away from the people. Then you get special interests, and then lobbying, and blah, 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 and the whole DC merry-go-round.
Right.
I guess I'm just someone who wishes that everything would be Pono all the time with everything.
Right. Yeah.
But, that's not the way of the world. There's politics and dirty politics and bad politicians and maybe some good politicians. I'm not sure if the word politician ever is good as an oxymoron.
Have you ever seen those you know how they have like Latin roots or breakdowns, and
Yes.
have you heard the one about politics?
Yes. Say it again, though. I forget how it goes. I have read it.
Poly meaning many,
Right.
and ticks meaning blood-sucking creatures.
Yes. There you go.
It's so funny.
Yeah. But, I think that there's a lot of stuff specifically on our side, I shouldn't say our side, on the west side, that needs some attention. I mean, obviously our roads are not only falling apart, but there's not enough of them.
Right.
And I have spoken with people who are part of a landowner zone that formerly was declared to be like the Elite Corridor or Parkway or whatever name you want to give it today or yesterday. And they said that they were willing to work with the county to get that put together. Now, possibly because there hasn't been any monies budgeted for it, or possibly because those people haven't come forth again in recent years.
Right.
But there needs to be something done. And our roads are in terrible condition.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know that there's contracts out there with Grace or whomever to provide the materials that are repaving the roads. But you know what? There's so many new things out there that can be done that don't have to be just the same old way, same day. That's basically the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Hey, that's what Tante said.
So what I had done some investigatory work into a company in UK called McReber. And the way that company was founded was because one of their founding people was in India. And they have little young children that go through the garbage or the landfills, and they pick out anything that they think that might be worthy of money somehow. And there was a huge pothole that this young boy had lit this plastic bottle on fire and filled the pothole with the plastic. So now he's thinking to himself, okay, we got a lot of plastics in our nation, in the world. What are we doing with it all? Well, now McReber has turned around, and they're making roads out of plastics. They're taking it out of the landfills. I mean, not only do we have Camilo Beach down south, which is just between tides and currents, just inundated with plastic. Between that and the landfills, and now today I'm reading in the paper where our director of environmental management says we have no solutions for the recycling issue. Well, there are solutions. Why people aren't paying attention to some of these other companies that are worldwide, and why we can't incorporate some of those things here, is beyond me.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. Last question for you.
Yep.
Will you be running for office in 2020?
That is still a juggling ball.
Yeah.
Granted, I wrote an op-ed in West Hawaii today which addressed a lot of my concerns. One of them was the roads, of course, as I just explained. Another one was, taxpayers are paying for people who are incarcerated, and those are tax dollars. Tax dollars also go to county workers. So with between $200 and $300 million going to our correctional facilities to maintain the 3 squares a day, which a lot of people who work 2 jobs don't even get. Why can't those same people come out and help when they're talking about the new herbicide thing going out, and the Parks and Rec people are saying we're going to have to hire 400 more people? Well, at a $40,000 average paycheck, that's $16 million. So, and that's not even including benefits.
Yeah.
So, why are we not utilizing some of the things we have right in front of us?
Well, I know a really great guy. His name is Mark Crivello, and he's a sponsor of this program, and he's part of 3C Goat Grazing. That was a plug.
I've met him. He's awesome.
He's a trip.
He's
I love
really
him so
a good
much.
guy. He's a good guy, and he's got a great product.
Yeah. He has it's a one of a kind product.
It
too.
is.
I just found out that they're doing it in Tennessee and New York and all of these other major cities, and their public works are doing it.
Yeah.
And so we have access to multiple goats out here.
Oh yeah.
So I had a great idea with Mark, and I was like, maybe we should corral these goats, and he wants to use a helicopter. Oh, and I know
Paradise helicopter?
I know a good helicopter company that can do such work.
Yeah.
But corral these goats into one area and get them all captured, and then use them right on our public works, on our highways, on our county parks, where we know they're going to be safe in the county parks versus the highway, give or take.
Yeah.
But that's something that needs to be done, because if we're no longer spraying on the side of the road, which I understand the intent of it, and I think it's a good thing. Right.
I mean, but you know what? You have to, when you're looking at all of these bills that are being passed, you have to do a step-by-step process, like the vacation.
$20 extra million into into, I don't know what the figure is, but $20 extra million just for 400 employees. It's a little drastic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're already $500 million into the budget, or as of the last fiscal year.
Yeah. Well, the other thing was when people are proposing bills, they need to take them step by step. Like the vacation rental bill that was passed. I don't think that was seen from beginning to end, because obviously when the planning department was inundated with all of the permits that needed to be processed in order for these vacation rentals to become legit, that wasn't thought through.
Right.
When they were taking all the vacation rentals that they thought they were going to be collecting the $500 on, and some people just said, you know what, bugger off, I'm out. Those are no longer feasible incomes that they were counting on.
Right.
So they don't really look at everything from beginning to end. The herbicide thing, yeah, I agree with. But like Harry Kim said, you have to mitigate it. You have to look at all the angles. You have to be able to figure out.
How's it going to affect it? How's it going to affect my budget? How is it going to?
Exactly.
Yeah. You have to ask those questions regardless if the bill goes through or not. It could be like a great bill. Like I had the idea of having this county be the first one to have the plastic straw ban. But there's going to be implications all across the board.
Right.
Businesses would have to switch over to paper or actual straw.
Well, by the way, we have what are they called? The silicone straws for sale at Kona Coffee and Tea.
Oh yeah, it's $1.25, right?
Yep. And I carry one in my pocket all the time. Whenever we go to the movies, I just whip it out, and there's my straw, and I put it back in its little case, and it's ready to go the next time.
I'm starting not to use straws.
That's a good thing too.
Yeah, but the only thing is the ice clenches up, and so when you pour it into your mouth, it like breaks up in front of your face, and it just gets all over the place. Well, Kelly, I have to. We have to close this podcast, but it's so great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
We need to do this more often.
I'm up for it. You let me know when.
Yeah, I'll ask you more hard questions.
Okay.
Next time.
All right.
This was only like
just
the
icebreaker.
Sprinkles on the cake. Yeah, icebreaker. Yeah.
There you go.
By the way, did you know? Do you know how much a polar bear weighs?
A lot.
Enough to break the ice. Hi, my name is Bronson Casso.
You're cute.
I'll be here all day. Actually, Hannah came out with this. I'm just gonna say this last joke before. Hannah had this. She loves all her mugs. And for people who don't know, Hannah's my girlfriend. She had this mug, and we went to the coffee shop this morning, and she ordered, and she says, "I would like." I think she said something along the lines like, "Moo coffee, please." Moo. And I was like, that was utterly bad. And then
both of you.
Oh yeah, we eat it up. And there was a guy that came up to us and said, I want to say it was I forget what the joke was, but I came back with him. He's like, "Do you know the reason why cows have bells? Because their horns don't work." And that in that case, I must end this podcast. But thank you, Kelly, so much to have you. It's so good to have you on. And
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again.
Yes. Mahalo.